Live from Charlotte Motor Speedway, we're back with the SRA Gen 4 series. An action-packed schedule is really only just getting underway, and this is going to be an exciting one around Charlotte Motor Speedway, an all-time classic for the NASCAR schedule, and a track that every single league under the sun likes to visit along their time. Howie Burrows alongside Lucas Moody here to bring you the action on this Saturday night. And on race 4 of the season, we've had Zane Bailey win 2 out of the 3 so far, Lucas, but this track does like to bring up some wild cards.
Yeah, you said it. The 4th race now of the season. Zane Bailey has won 2 of the previous races. Cody Gibson won at Old Atlanta 2 weeks ago. Are we looking for a new winner this season? A 3rd winner so far. We're going to hope so. We're going to hope that somebody new, somebody different can top this field here in the 4th week of the Sim Racing Association.
Still lots to play for in a championship this early. 2 wins only puts you a little bit ahead. Zane Bailey 7 points ahead of Michael Gudger and Paul Witt in 3rd. Behind William McKellar the 4th, Thomas Lanes Jr. and a Cody Gibson winner from Atlanta last time I was here. John Wilder Jr., Aaron Raymold, Elliot Granda and Joshua Burke. Plenty more going to hit the grid today. 20 cars in total. They're doing their pre-race setup, which this time I've been well informed that we do not wait through qualifying for them to do the driver briefing. On top of it, Charlotte Motor Speedway, Lucas, is surprisingly thin and surprisingly tight for a oval circuit. Still a mile and a half as ever, but turn 3 and 4 could be pretty brutal.
Yeah, you really have to be careful of getting loose off exit. Even a little bit of understeer on exit, you can put yourself in the wall like that and completely ruin your race. But you're gonna see these drivers, hugging that blue line. That blue line, it's got a lot of grip, not even next to it, but on it as well. The blue line offers a good amount of grip. It's kind of a fun fact that not a lot of people know, but I'm sure that we're gonna see this inside line get ripped a lot. But just like a lot of these ovals, like Old Atlanta, that outside line, that is where a lot of those, when you're trying to block, you're trying to defend from the car behind, you want to be on that outside line so you have the run down the straights. But if you're going for the overtake, use that inside line, try to get this, not the switchback, try to get that slide job done and hug that blue line as much as you can.
Let's talk through our starting grid for today's race while we're here. Cody Gibson starts up on pole. William McKellar, the 4th, with a good lap to set him up in P2. Seth Wilbur lines up in 3rd alongside Elliot Kandera. Michael Gudger is in 5th next to Aaron May. And on the 4th row, Ted Reich is up against Zane Bailey. Not a great qualifying performance for our championship leader, but lots of chances to move things around. Paul Witt's in 9th and Jim Duda is in 10th.
And then just behind them in 11th is Tanner Marr and Thomas Lane Jr. starting on his outside. And then 13th will be Jeff Gilmore and Kyle Wellman in 14th. Just behind them in 15th and 16th is Joshua Burke and Chris Mackey. And then qualifying in 17th position is Mike Campbell lining up alongside Larry Bell. And then in 19th is going to be John Bowalda Jr. And to wrap up your top 20, it's Jim Coleman'sberger.
That should make our entire starting grid. Drivers wrapping through their pre-race, and somebody has set a pace car that means I cannot use my favorite camera angle, which is okay because we can just substitute with the left rear and it still sort of clips through something, but we can work with that. So last time I was on the call for this series, it was around Atlanta, which was big and wide. It's been on the truck schedule all week, and I've been having a lot of fun shredding up my tires and then wondering where they went. very different track around here just because of how tight and tricky it is. The old Gen 4 car, it was so easy to just end up in the wall of 3 and 4, and huge stack-ups on that very, very flat and tight tri-oval would just catch cars out by surprise. These cars are a lot tighter than what you're used to, but I think that probably means the wall around 3 and 4 could be even harder, to be honest.
Yeah, you mentioned that tri-oval. I've also heard it referred to as a quad oval, as it has the weird 2 juts, just kind of like Atlanta does. But that flat front straight, it does create a lot of challenges. Of you don't usually have to turn so aggressively when you're coming down straights on these ovals. It really makes a unique challenge of what's the car on your outside going to do, what's the car on your inside going to do, and how we might even see contact down the straightaway just because of how unique it is, how often or how unoften you see stuff like that at tracks. The only tracks I can think of would be Texas, would be Atlanta, and would be here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. But yeah, you also mentioned that tire game. Tires are going to be important. I stress it every single week, even though these drivers, this league, restricts that fuel load. It limits how much fuel you put in these cars. Having a good set of tires at the end of your stint matters a lot.
It really isn't a true race at Charlotte. It's going to be controversial. It's not a true race at Charlotte without a car being sent right across that grass infield that you can see in the shot right there as they enter that quad oval. Deceptively tight and deceptively tricky. Bit of an endurance race out here. This is not, however, run to the longest race of the season like the Coke 600. We're going to be running 180 miles, so it's the exact same length as Chicagoland last week. We have longer races. Michigan's going to be 200 miles and Talladega's going to be 212. Variable race lengths all throughout this lake. This one is about in the middle at 180, so we're not quite going to be living our Coke 600 dreams, but a long enough race here, enough pit stops, it starts to feel like your own personal Coke 600. Only 2 drivers left to hit the grid as drivers finish off their pre-race briefing. And then we should be ready to go. This time I haven't just dumped us in at the beginning of qualifying and told us to wait.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to bring up is I believe we have some pre-race penalties for a couple of these drivers. So if I am reading this correctly, Tanner Marr has a penalty where he has to have an EOL at the start of the race. So, just as they're getting off the grid, Tanner Marr will get a penalty from the stewards and he will fall back to the very back of the pack. And Cody Gibson has something even stricter than that. He is starting from the pits this race, and Cody Gibson's your pole sitter. So our pole sitter will not be able to take the grid. As you see, his car is completely missing as he will be starting this race from the pits. I'm not quite sure that we're getting Howie. Might have some mic issues.
It's the hardware mute switch. I had an amazing thing going, and you don't need to apologise because I need to apologise. All I'm saying is that's going to promote Seth Wilbur up to the front row with Michael Gudger on that inside line. I was saying every word I have, but it is not a broadcast without me hitting the microphone mute switch. At least we get it done early. 1 to green as we head around. It's going to be William McCullough the 4th on the outside and Seth Wilbur on the inside because we do not see Cody Gibson on the grid. Going to be starting from the pits. And as drivers line up, keys to victory. You've mentioned the tyres. You've mentioned the lines. Any last minute suggestions? Keep it quick.
Be aggressive and drive your heart out.
I like that very much. Pace cars off. And with a few bumps from the rear, including a penalty for Seth Wilbur, we are green at Charlotte, and that is a tremendous stack up already on the start of the race. I felt like that wasn't starting well, and I don't think it's ended any better. We are yellow.
I mean, absolute chaos to start the race here. We talk about the slight malfunction we have with the mic. What about this huge malfunction we just had with this race start? That outside line completely got confused. They just were running into each other. People were going before it was green. And then when it actually was time to go green, the stack up caught to the back of the pack and chaos erupted. The volcano exploded. And we have a caution before we even make it a meter.
Well, does drivers try and work out how to coordinate this this yellow on their mics? I'm going to see if I can try and catch that yellow. A lot of events kicking off at once. Meanwhile, replay button decides it's not working just on time. Let's try going back to there and seeing what happens. That's behaving well. This is a little bit early, but we've got a lot to deal with under caution. William McKellar, the fourth, started on the front row, and that was really the beginning of everything. I think the 9 just sort of pushes the 10th. Big gap to the 10th. Now, 9 pushes the... 9 really pushes 75. He's now ahead of the leader, jumping the start. That might have led to a black flag, but that's actually it. Then the 9's just slow to go, and... yeah, that's where it all sort of goes, I think, when that 9 is just not really ready to launch at the start of the race.
Okay, Howie, if I had predictions, or if I had to guess what happened there, because I believe the 18 of Seth Wilbur was actually the one that ended up with the black flag penalty. So I think Seth Wilbur accidentally went too early. The 09 of Elliot Condra saw the leader go, so he went. But William McKellar, knowing it was still too early, didn't go. That caused a contact between the 75 and the 09, and that was the chain reaction event. So no, it wasn't, because then later on, I don't know if you saw it, that 75 kind of stopped to let the leader pass him again in fear of getting a penalty.
Pour one out for race control. Pour one out for race control. There are about 10 black flags out on this field for all sorts of iRacing related things. It was a lot of those to do with when drivers entered into the pit, so hopefully some of those will be cleared, and I believe there is a fast repair available to many of these drivers, of which many have taken. Seth Wilbur, though, keeps this first black flag. Let me count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 black flags. Race control are having a fantastic time trying to work out what to do with those between themselves. And, well, that is a way to begin your day at Charlotte. A little bit of confusion on the race start. And it's catastrophe. And I think everything's going to get cleared. But let's just see how many cars are janky and going to need a little bit of help. Well, that's McKellar, the fourth's car. That's damaged. Aaron May's car. That's missing the front. Jeff Gilmore's looks okay. Coleman Spurgeon 2. Coleman Spurger. I don't really know which way sounds better to say that, to be honest. I need some official clarification. Tanner Marr, I think, is good, but Joshua Burke used fast repair. Jim Duda's used a fast repair. Drivers are lining back up. And I think we might get a race this time around.
And let me tell you, if there was any race I would choose to start from the pits, like Cody Gibson did, it would be the race where there is just absolute chaos happening on the first lap. Cody Gibson was able to avoid all of that simply by just not being there. So kind of a lucky penalty in a way, because most likely he would have gotten caught up in that wreck, you know, starting on pole or starting from wherever he was, or maybe the wreck wouldn't even have happened if Cody Gibson was your pole sitter. But since he started from the pits, he was able to avoid the wreck, and he's now down in 14th. Or 50th. They're all sorting themselves out, but he's down in the middle of the pack now.
Some would say it's all according to the script, but if it is, I'm not the one that's involved in them. Double far behind the pace car. Michael Gudger's going to lead the pack. Seth Wilbur's going to be on the outside, and Mike Campbell and Thomas Lane Jr. are going to make the second row. Can we get a good start at Charlotte? We'll get one eventually, and this might have to be the one. We are green, and it's a great run by Gudger. Look at the speed of that car as it runs away.
And remember, we talk about Michael Gudger. He has 2 second places this season already, so we know he's going to be hungry and looking for that win. But a great jump from him, already ahead of Seth Wilbur by 0.8 of a second. Absolutely gapped the rest of the field on that restart. So great stuff, and we have a huge battle for third now.
First two-wide battle here. Mike Campbell on the bottom. Jim Duda's going to try running it up on the high side as the Thomas Lane Jr. runs away. 5-car of John S. Boulder Jr. also watching on. Bit of a slow exit through that quad oval, and I tell you what, there's nothing that makes me feel away such as watching Gen 4 cars rip around there. You don't realise how exciting it is until you're there. on that bottom line. John Volder Jr. followed by Chris Mackey. In the 13, it's actually Ted Reichert on the inside that's going to try and get the lead over that 14, make it the 13 and the 14 together. And William McKellar is back in 10th, but still around and still in this. Michael Gudger with the fastest lap. It's a 7/10 lead, and this is our big battle. It starts from 5th down.
Yeah, and I love these cameras that we can get this overhead because you can really see what I was talking about. Those drivers are putting their left side tires on that blue line. They know it has a ton of grip. Look, right there, you can see that white car. I couldn't quite catch the number. That white 13 car of Ted Wreckage using all of that grip on the blue line as he's trying to make this pass on Mike Campbell, that bright green and black car. He does get the move done, and now that leaves him vulnerable to the 75.
William McKellar was fast to get that early position up near the front, but dropped back due to the wreck. Now clearly making up places pretty quickly is Elliot Kandra on the inside as Mike Campbell already jumps to the top. I'm not sure that top line is very fast yet, but it will get better as the race will go on. It might not be very good on the tyres either. This is interesting. Jeff Gilmore leads the way of the next pack. A damaged Zane Bailey chose not to take the fast repair. Thinks more might happen out on the track on this long race. 120 laps to prove it. Might as well not burn it on the first inconvenience. Up front, Ted Rakic still side by side now with Walder Jr. This top four have mostly strung out very, very, very far ahead down the line. Gudger is enjoying this free air that he's going to hold up for quite some time. And I think this is where the tangle's going to be. McKellar sent it to the bottom.
Yeah, this is exactly what I was talking about. Being aggressive. Those quick words that I got in right before that chaos on the green flag drop. You can see exactly this 13 car of Ted Wreckage. He knows that he wants to make his way through the field, get out of the dirty air, get his nose clean. That even though you have to push your tires out a little bit to get into that position, the effect of having your clean air versus the dirty air, that benefit saves your tires much, much more than sitting behind someone's dirty air and trying to save your tires that way. Because the understeer you get from these Gen 4 cars and the cars ahead, the next gen, whatever cars you want, it's so much dirty air. It's a crazy amount of understeer and is not somewhere you want to be for a long time.
Especially with iRacing sets that are on the tighter side for these cars. Cody Gibson, very fast in Atlanta last time I outcaught these cars, flying now, trying to get past this pack. A little into the wall on the outside. That it's the wall as you transition off the banking onto the flat that is the real troublemaker, no matter what car you're running on this track. Sparks being dragged up from the bottom of Gibson's car. I don't know if that's damage or setup or maybe just something happening on my end, but he's made it up into 9th now, and he's got a long road to make up. Further up the line, Seth Wilbur isn't a slouch here. He's been running fast for the last few laps, and he's been catching up to Michael Gudger. But the lap stiff gap hasn't been tremendous. It's been within the hundredths, but that time has been getting made up.
Yeah, just slowly crawling back at this lead. So what you're gonna want to do here if you're Seth Wilbur is either sit behind him half a second, use his draft to pull you down in the straights, but make sure you're not close enough to get the dirty air in the corners, or you just want to push your tires, play a little more aggressive, get in his draft, get up to his bumper, go for the overtake, make him the car that has to drive in the dirty air if you can get that move done. Both are valid strategies, and it looks like Seth Wilbur might want that lead. He might be pushing to pass Michael Gudger within the next coming laps.
Now stuck within that kind of sort of 4/10 bubble, I've noticed. Kind of get a little bit in, a little bit out. Both drivers are going to be running their own race for a little while. Here's the battle down here for about 11th. Coleman Sperger in 13th here behind Aaron May and Witt. I think there was a small little crash that we weren't quite able to catch. Joshua Burke now at the back of the pack. Let's try and work out what may have happened to him. We were able to stay green under this, so likely something that took a lot of use of the grass.
Yes, let's see. We got the 24, the 42, and just gets loose off exit. I couldn't tell you if he had help from Kyle Wellman in that 42 car, but he definitely might have. I know this will tell us for sure. Yeah, look at that. Kyle Wellman, you can see how much speed he's carrying here and does just clip the back of Joshua Burke's car. That'll put him through the infield, but was able to get it off the track, and we stay green.
Count that as the driver flying through the grass on the infield. It's not a race at Charlotte about someone working out how to do it in our time. And trust me, I usually find a way to be the one. Big move to the bottom by Jeff Gilmore here. Big run on Aaron May. I'm not usually used to trying to pass people so hard on the quad oval. It is tight. It does present itself a passing opportunity, but it's so easy to make a horrible, horrible mistake. Further up front, Thomas Lane Jr. has been slowing, although he does have the fastest lap. Jim Duda seems to have a significantly more pace to take him up on the inside. Driver sort of preserving a little bit on the high side. Not usually a tyre-saving lane on many a track, but just trying to get out of the way and avoid the extent of the battling for now. There's still a lot to see out there, and you don't really want to throw it all away this early. This pack quite compressed up. Then it's Elliot Kandra. Job Rod Jr. is within 1 to 2 tenths. And further up, Michael Gudger, he's running away from Seth Wilbur again. He's got that pace back in him.
Yeah, so you talk about these battles all up and down the field. Now that we're getting later into our stint, we can start picking out the drivers that have been saving their tires, that have been preserving for long run pace. Let me tell you, one driver who has not, maybe that 38 of Thomas Lane Jr. You mentioned it, Howie. He has that fastest lap, which means that earlier in the race, he was pushing and he was pushing hard. When I was coming to bid him, as I think Zane Bailey's about fed up with not having a rear bumper. I think he's going to use that faster pair now.
We'll see what else he puts on the car, whether that front bumper just returns. Taking tyres as well. 20 laps into a race at Charlotte. You have to be hoping that something crazy happens for that to become worth it. But we'll leave him to it. These races can go a little bit unusual. Very, very single file running for now. Sit on board with William McKellar, the fourth here, to get an idea as to just how you run around this track. Behind Thomas Lane Jr., who's chasing down Ted Reiching. And he's holding that bottom.
Yeah, I was about to say, he looks for that inside, and even from here, you can tell using that blue line has a ton of grip. You wouldn't expect it. You think that the paint, it's more slick. You're not going to have as much grip on it, but you have a ton. Let me tell you that from firsthand experience. And he's just going to keep riding this inside line until he's able to get clear, until he's able to put that 38 behind him. But they're still side by side coming down the quad oval into one. William McKellar is just not able to get the move done. And now we look at the battle for third place between Ted Wreckage and Jim Duda.
I think I've been getting Ted's name terribly wrong. Wreckage seems so obvious. Jim Duda was flying like a few minutes ago, and we look away and he's all the way down to fourth again. So whether he thought maybe I'm pushing too hard, or maybe he made some mistake that has just held him back. I'm not completely sure, but he went from right up to the top to right down to the bottom, and now it's a 2-second gap to the leader. Paul Witt side by side with Jim Coleman'sburg. Jeff Gilmore as well in tow, and Chris McKay is also tangling with Mike. I think that's Kyle Wellman up ahead. Mike Campbell is the one that is behind. Joshua Burke still on the track and still on the lead lap after that incident, so a caution would send him back in. And Zane Bailey shouldn't worry too much. He actually has only lost 1 lap, and you might expect a caution in the whole length of this race. So if the pace is consistent in the long run, which it'll be good enough to stay ahead of the leader for now on newer tyres, maybe that genius comes back around to being worth it. And Zane is the sort of driver that knows how to make a winning situation at present, at the very least. Very, very single file here right now at Charlotte. Drivers just really trying to play into their own groove on a very grueling track.
Yeah, I think a lot of what that strategy call to pit from Zane Bailey was essentially just cutting his losses. You know, he took that risk of not using that faster pair, of thinking that the damage wasn't that bad. He turned a few laps. He was like, okay, the damage is that bad. Didn't fall for the sunk cost fallacy, which is, you know, that fallacy where just because you've been doing something bad for this amount of time doesn't mean you have to keep doing it. You have to cut your losses, like Zane Bailey did there. Was realizing he was way off pace, got the faster pair, got new tires, got up to fuel. So he's on that B strategy, that alternate strategy from the rest of the drivers. And that might come out to help him in the end, as you said. But now we have a battle for second, I believe. This is Seth Wilbur and Ted Rekich. And Ted Rekich, we saw, has been making his way up through this pack. And now he puts himself in prime position to go and catch Michael Gudger.
Drivers really have been changing positions in unusual ways. Again, like Seth Wilbur, flew away for a bit. Now Jim Duda's back on his rear bumper again, and now Rekich is taking this place. So I'm not sure what is contributing to just the immense level of swapping around the top. One thing I do know is that Michael Gudger is the driver benefiting from all this the most. Now 3 seconds in his own universe. Let's put the camera on our race leader for a second just to prove that he definitely does exist. As we look back down into the battle, now it's Rekich's chance to run away, and I've seen this battle before. I've seen a Wilbur passed by Dudas, also saw it passed back pretty quickly. So the way these drivers are sort of in their own heads and is one thing, but I've not really seen gaps made up and disappeared this quickly.
Yeah, and my driver to watch so far is Cody Gibson. You remember he put it on pole, but he had that penalty where he had to start from the race. He restarted on lap 5 from very dead last, position 20. Made his way all the way up to 7th while preserving his tires decently well, as he's still lapping quicker than people like Seth Wilbur, Jim Duda in that 3rd and 4th position. So he's been making his way through the field, preserving those tires. If this stays green, he might even be able to close that gap in Elliott Cantor, close that gap to William McKellar. He could be in the top 5 very soon here, and even fighting for that win.
Basically, like the moment I look away from Seth Wilbur, he's repassed someone and has gotten passed again about 5 times. Interesting call on Gibson, and we'll be watching him as the race goes on. He can be a very, very aggressive fighter for the top. We're starting to see some pit stops. Jeff Gilmore now into a pit road, and I've heard a call for at least one more. Some drivers starting this quite early, I think. That's 26 laps on the stint.
Yeah, that could just be drivers that were really aggressive on their tires, maybe even too aggressive. They just felt they were too off pace. Didn't have any speed left in their car, didn't want to drive in these really old, bad tires any longer. I'll say it again, they cut their losses, they came down, they're going to try this undercut strategy. They're going to pit a little bit earlier, which means that for these next 5 laps, they're going to be outpacing the rest of the field by a probably good 7 to 8 tenths, maybe even upwards of a second, depending on how much these guys push out their tires. With this undercut strategy, when you push out your tires like that, definitely something that's viable. As you see, a lot of people making pit stops. That is 18 and a 75, so we'll probably see the leader Gudger in pretty soon too.
It's the nature of limited fuel. You're going to get limited by that tank one. You're going to get limited by those tires, and you're going to make stops that are a little bit out of rhythm with that. But that often means that lower fuel count encourages you to push quite a lot harder for quite a bit longer. So you take some, you lose some. Stint view on the side is going to show you which drivers haven't stopped yet. Anyone with those double-digit numbers, they're still running out. Seth Wilbur is our current leader out of the drivers who have stopped. Now, it looks like I thought the driver behind McKellar was about to get gap there, but that's actually a lap car between, as drivers are on very different laps right now. A caution would disrupt everything about this field, but right now, we're keeping to ourselves right now. There's Coleman'sberger in the 11 car. Elliott Kandra all over the rear of Jim Duda now, making another driver that is tangling for place here, but one of those is going to have to jump into the pit lane very, very soon. We're well into the cycle now.
Yeah, you said it, all of these guys in that top 11, they're going to have to come down pit road soon, but they're extending as long as they can, you know, just in case of a caution. If a caution comes out and you've already pit, you're kind of stuck a lap down and screwed as Elliott Kandra gets that slide job done. Can Jim Duda bring it back to the inside of 3? He's not going to look for it. He's going to file in, and that is Elliott Kandra making the move for, I believe, effective 3rd once all the pit stops are said and done. And coming back to this pit stop strategy, you have that undercut and you have the overcut. So the undercut, you get a huge amount of time right when the pit stops are done. Probably, depending on how many laps, 2 or 3 seconds worth of time. For that overcut, you extend a little bit longer, your tires are fresher. Just a little bit fresher, 2 to 3 laps fresher every single lap. So every single lap, you'll probably get maybe like half a tenth. It's a much more slow return of gains than that undercut. Both are viable strategies, both work, and I can't wait to see which one works out in the end here today at Charlotte.
Some drivers here going very, very long, just trying to hold out for conditions to go their way as well, potentially. It's Gudger in P6 who leads the road out of the non-stoppers. He'll take the lead. He'll take the lead as he approaches these lead pack cars as more and more starts to drop down. I think that's our leaders. That's Conjure and Duda.
Yeah, as you know, these people that just haven't come down to pit yet, now they're making their stops. The one interesting member of the field, the interesting number as well, the 24 gets really sideways, fighting with that 20 is Zane Bailey. Thomas Lane Jr. is going to get through as well. Very scary moment there for Joshua Bark. We already saw him spinning through the infield. Almost happened to him again there. But speaking of that 20 is Zane Bailey, 18 laps in. Remember, he made that stop out of cycle with everybody else. So interesting to see when he chooses to pit next. It'll be interesting to see how he chooses to play the rest of this race. But now we're going to get a replay of what happened to Joshua Burke. Might have just got tagged by the 20 car Zane Bailey. No, he just loses it by himself. You said it earlier how he turn 4 is brutal for Oversteer.
I utterly hate that transition. It comes in very, very, very fast. Faster than you could ever imagine. Rest of the drivers finish their pit stop cycle now, apart from Zane Bailey, who is out of cycle with the rest of the drivers. He obviously made a significantly earlier stop. Still has at least 10 to 15 laps in him and in this tank. And if a caution comes his way, he's basically played it almost perfectly. Until then, though, he's tangling this field. He's going to be just a little bit slower. Further up ahead, Cody Gibson. You've talked about him flying up and up and up and up. And here he is, sitting in P3. Aaron, May, and Duda still racing side by side pretty hard and pretty tight. And this angle makes the track look like it's got a lot more space than it does. Both respecting each other well on exit, though. Paul Witt next behind in 9th as they're going to remain locked side by side. And both of these lines have their weaknesses. You don't get much room to run being trapped on the bottom, but being stuck there on the top, it will bum those tires out.
Yeah, that top side, because it's higher on the banking, because you are literally driving further around the track than that inside line, it really, really hurts those right side tires much more than that inside line. Which is why these drivers that are tire preserving, they're gonna use the inside line. They're going to stick to the bottom. But if you have to defend, if you need the extra speed down the straight, sometimes that outside line is your only option to just not get freight trained from behind, to make sure you're able to hold position. A lot of it is a balance, Howie. You know, that balance of burning out your tires, or saving your tires, I should say, but also holding your track position. Really have to find the balance. How much are you willing to lose to save your tires, or how much are you willing to gain by burning out your tires? That is what oval racing is about, and that is why I love it so much.
It is the long-run strategy style of racing on iRacing. Road fans, I gotta say, you guys have never experienced a tool-worn tire in your life sometimes, and I say that as someone that drives too many sports cars in my time, quite frankly. That Charlotte does sometimes produce these races that become about the strategy and the tires much more than the very, very, very close side-by-side battling. It is just such a meat grinder of a track, I consider it. It's just one where you need to focus more than on other intermediates of its kind, because it comes out to bite you a whole lot quicker than others. This will obviously be one of the last races run on this version of Charlotte, possibly one of the worst. No, I don't think they're destroying this scan. This is not the version that's not being destroyed, but with the release of the new season and the new scan, most leagues are going to move over, so won't call it one of the last, but certainly this is a bit of a farewell in league racing as the 13 of Ted Reckick tries to move Seth Wilmer up the track. 3 cars tangling for second. Rekic's got momentum down there on the bottom, just still not quite enough to hold off Wilbur on the outside. McKellar probably enjoying watching this from behind, trying to see if an opportunity opens up.
Yeah, and I, of course, talk about the overcut versus the undercut. Ted Rekic, he pitted later, so he has 5-lap fresher tires than the 18, then the 75. Using that to very well, using that to his advantage here. He didn't get that initial burst of speed like I talked about earlier. You saw he got passed by Seth Wilbur. Oh, and Zane Bailey's around the 20 car. He was off strategy. Now his strategy is completely ruined. He's around and the caution comes out.
I thought something was going on. You know what? Producers have an eye on the timing tab when something is odd. We caught the back half of that, and that's going to... Dane Bailey not damaged, but he's certainly going to be set back by that one indeed. Already a little bit loose, you can see for that tri-oval. The 11 of Jim Kommensberger on the high side. Very, very fast. And that 20 of Zane Bailey on the old tyres is just slow. The 5 rear ends him a little, but when your tyres are that old and the speed difference is that huge, you can see how this sort of thing happens. He's just trying to hold a car with 20-lap older tyres, and the 5 is just running his line like normal. No cars totaled as a result of that. Zane Bailey just locks it up. Well, let's hope no cars get totaled. No, I don't think so. He does lock it up and keep it turned back forwards again, but maybe this does also grant him the caution for his pit strategy, and he can sort of return to normal. Drivers are now up to 15 laps on the tyres. I actually don't know what they're going to do in this next pit stop.
Yeah, and that 5 of John Buada Jr., you have to just be a little more conscientious than that. If you know the guy in front of you is on older tires, you know he's going to be a bit slower. Really got to keep an eye on him, keep an eye on that gap to him so you don't spin him out and give yourself a penalty that he probably will here. And we see Michael Gudger takes to the pits. A lot of other guys stayed out, though, if I'm not mistaken. I could just be absolutely blabbering. I think the entire field is pitting besides Campbell, Bell, Mackey, and Tanner Marr.
Campbell, 16 laps on the tyres. Bell, 11 laps on the tyres. Currently, I think these drivers were a lap down, so now they're getting their lap back, and now maybe the pit lane opens up for them. Pit exit, Tej Rekic leads in P1 ahead of Michael Gudger, interestingly, winning that race off pit road, and it's because Rekic, he took 2 tyres, or maybe even none, a 6.1 second pit stop. Shall we take a look at that in more detail and just see how many jacks that car goes up on? Because he definitely did handle that one just a little bit differently.
And remember, Ted Rekic, his tires aren't that old. They're only about, I think, 8 or 9 laps old, so might just be worth it to not even take tires and get that track position. And you're right, not a single jack goes up. That is a fuel-only stop for the 13 car.
So, we go back to one of our greatest adages of sim racing, and a high-power car with this much horsepower as the cars up front are looking for their wave-around opportunity, and Ted Rekic will lead the way. How do you feel about starting on old tyres at Charlotte? We have already seen one big wreck off the start, but we're about to put the whole field in Ted Rekic's hands. And let us find out for ourselves. I think he's the only driver that didn't take tyres. Everybody else took 2. When it comes to available tyre sets in this session, it's 5 sets, and that makes 4 changes. That's quite a high number of tyre sets for a race this long. So it does incentivize drivers to stop often and change often, but Ted wants that track position so much. Restart zone will be on, by the way, for this league, just so you know.
Yeah, and when it comes to starting on old tires, it really comes down to one word, Howie, and that is experience. Do you have the experience, the skills necessary to keep that car straight when you're putting the power down, to keep that car under control when these other drivers that have much better tires, much quicker tires, whizzing around you, to keep your mental, to stay calm, to be like, okay, that's fine. I know they're going to be quicker than me. I don't have to get upset. Don't start driving on tilt. Don't drive angry, and use your experience and let the experience talk for itself. Because it's a strategy that I do a lot, and it happens a lot in my leagues. If I'm on older tires, I think I saved well enough, I'll stay out at the next caution, give myself the track position, I'm going to lose probably 7 or 8 positions on the start, but it's a much better place than I was in earlier in the race. So definitely a viable strategy. Let's see what the 13 car here does with it.
Our third start of the race. And Ted Rekic will lead the way into the restart zone, and we are away clean. Bit of a check-up on the bottom. Seth Wilbur quite slow and holding up some cars, including the one of Gibson, who wanted to find every possible way around. On the high side, Michael Gudger is likely a whole lot faster on these tyres, and we'll see how big that gap is on exit. It's not good enough right now to majorly clear, but he's going to hang with him a little bit on the wall as he comes around. And she should be able to carry significant momentum out there, and there it goes into the transition. Further back, it is a scramble for track position. As I'm looking out for Cody Gibson, just as you looked out for him earlier, that's Wilbur below the line, almost comes up, causes a disaster, just about clean for now.
Yeah, and Seth Wilbur almost having a nightmarish of a back half of this race here. I know we're not in the second half, but you see as the 75 looking for the inside of 13, knows he's on older tires, doesn't want to be behind him for too long. Rekic is going to try to hold off for now, but McKellar still has that quarter panel, still has the room to make it too wide into 1 and 2. Just might be able to get the move done once again on those fresher tires. While they're too wide, I'll go back to talking about that 18 of Seth Wilbur. As the 75 gets the move done, remember Seth Wilbur was like fighting for the lead at one point, we thought. 5/10 off of Michael Gudger, really charging at him, looking to take the victory, but falling back all the way to 7th, getting past, getting a bit loose there even, off of 4. He's going to have to find his mental again and see if he can regroup himself to fight for these podium positions once again.
Ted Rekic still sort of tangling and battling with people rather than giving up these places. He is slowly dropping over time, and Cody Gibson's taken best advantage of all of this in order to start climbing one of his biggest rivals. It's pretty much down and out off the track as I speak. Zane Bailey still in this, but he's got a lot to make up, and that field reset means those tyres have been pretty much reset as well for everybody except our 13 car, and I reckon this strategy could end up working for him, but we will keep an eye on it. Ted Rekic obviously dropping back due to these older tyres, but he's certainly not done anything unsafe along the way. This might help his strategy up front. McKellar almost dives to the bottom, doesn't quite get the space, but now Gibson has momentum on the high side, transitioning out of turn 4, and that high line starting to get fast.
Yeah, your man who qualified first, who was in 20th not that long ago, 50 laps ago. It felt like it wasn't that long ago. I went by absolute in the blink of an eye. Now looking for the lead on that rear bumper of Michael Gudger, that 64 machine. Cody Gibson in that one bright orange Cheetos car, looking to see if he can make it all happen, if he can once again strip that poor Michael Gudger of another first place. I'll say it once again, 2 second places on the season. Looked like he was gonna win last race, but had that disconnect problem, if you remember correctly. Or it was either disconnect or an unlucky crash, can't remember which. But just so many heartbreaking races for this 64. Cody Gibson looking to make it a 4th heartbreaking race for him.
This pack has not spread out at all like the pack did at the start of the race. Has separation here behind Wilbur, but then Aaron May has his whole other pack to contend with. That's Paul Witt ahead, and Zane Bailey running side by side with Thomas Lane Jr. I don't think Jim Kolmensberger is out by any means. Drivers behind are quite a bit slower and off the pace, but now we're starting to see the draft effect of this current Gen 4. It's about to get significant changes in the next iRacing patch to reduce its draft effect and make the races string out just a bit more. Maybe we'll also see some setup updates as well. Many drivers complaining about the tightness of the setup, especially compared to the classic car. We'll all find out a lot more next week, I think, when week 13 comes around and I get to spam Production Car Challenge on ovals all over again. Cody Gibson keeps looking like he wants to make that move, but it's almost a repeat from the last time I saw these two drivers chase down each other. It's quite hard to get the pass done. Cody Gibson's going to go try and force himself low. I think he's got good momentum on corner exit, and this will let him properly challenge the inside this time.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned going back to old Atlanta. Remember, it was Michael Gudger leading the race, coming to the checkered flag. It was Cody Gibson just behind him in second, and Cody Gibson ended up winning that race. Michael Gudger hit the wall coming off of 4. So once again, these two are battling it out for the lead, and it makes sense, Howie. Old Atlanta has so many similarities to Charlotte Motor Speedway. It makes sense that these two are the quickest on the track here, just like they were a couple weeks ago. But if these two aren't careful, I know you can see it, that 75, that yellow and blue car of William McKellar IV, he's going to start looking for some moves if the 64 and the 1 can't sort themselves out quickly here.
Don't count Elliot Condra out of this either as he dives to the bottom of Jim Duda. This is the real pack racing that this car can sometimes produce at the moment in iRacing. And Cody Gibson is just staring down the rear bumper. We cross halfway and the laps start counting down. 60 to go on the road, and Gibson can't really bide his time and just sort of let the long run come to him, unfortunately, because he's being hounded by drivers behind the whole way back. This is so unlike that first run where drivers up front just sort of save their stuff and not really worry too much. There is absolutely no respite for any of this at all for any of these drivers. McKellar is lining up in 5th. Jim Duda still there in 4th. And amazingly, Ted Reckick is still with this lead pack. And those are some older tyres. They're going to fall off quite a bit quicker. But if something happens and he ends up having an extra set at the right time, that's going to just make and define his race for good. Cody Gibson now tries the inside again. Cut off in time by Gudger to stop him from making that charge up the inside. Not much movement for quite some time, but seems like the threat of some movement has been very, very, very regular.
Yeah, as I talked about it earlier, the 75 now, William McKellar getting antsy, looked for his opportunity, might send it into 3, just not close enough. But yeah, you mentioned Ted Rekic in P6, just barely holding on to that back of the front pack. And I'll be honest, I don't agree too much with the strategy. I think staying out on old tires, putting yourself in first like that is a great strategy if you're down in 25th, 30th, back there. But Ted Rekic, remember, he has the same pace as the leaders. He is quick enough to be racing Gudger, to be racing Gibson, but putting himself on these older tires, hindering himself, now has made it so he can't race them. He can't be up in this fight. And he gained 2 or 3 positions, I think. He was in 4th or 3rd when that caution came out, maybe even 2nd, I think it was. So I don't agree with the risky call of not changing tires. Just don't think he needed to make that decision, as once again, the 75 and the 1, side by side in the 2.
Gibson's pace has dropped and Gudger's hasn't gone anywhere, and that's put him under threat from McKellar, who isn't quite able to get strong enough onto the inside for that to be a real problem for now. But more and more cars are creeping up. That's Wilbur and May, who are now well within this pack. Duda's dropping. Duda has just lost every little bit of pace he could possibly get. He was 2 tenths slower than the cars around him, and don't really know where he's gone. If he was sort of sitting around the middle, had to burn up his tires maybe too much to get there. Wilbur and Duda, they've been tangling all race. It was up front, now it's a little bit further back, and they remain in exactly the same place. It's back behind, full of action too. Coleman Slugger is flying up bit by bit by bit, and now Zane Bailey is the next driver to chase, who hasn't been able to make any headway in on the pack. So much happening here, but not all of it has really developed into race-defining moments either. It's all just a little bit of, I'll give some and I'll take some.
Yeah, just very little, moments happening all up and down the field. You can see some drivers just stick out their nose a little bit, either for fresh air, either to look for a move on the car ahead. But yeah, you mentioned that 20 car of Zane Bailey. He just got spun out, started that last restart all the way back in 20th. He has now cleared that second pack, now up to 9th place, looks to catch up to the tail end of this backpack. He once again has the pace to be in the talk for winning this race. I believe, Howie, your 4 drivers with the most pace that should be in this discussion to win here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. It's going to be Michael Gudger, it's going to be Cody Gibson, it's going to be Ted Rekic, it's going to be Zane Bailey. So those are my 4 drivers to watch out for to win this race, and I hope that they can all come together with 10 laps to go. We get a 4-way battle for the victory. That is my hope. But for that to happen, Ted Rekich is going to have to get himself some fresh tires, and Zane Bailey's still got some work to do cutting through this pack.
Passing hasn't proven terribly hard for most people. Michael Gudge has been a hard car to get past, but we've seen passing everywhere. Now those old tyres are really starting to punish Ted Rekich, and Aaron May is staring all over the rear bumper, being held up along the way. Very high for William McKellar there. But he's able to recover it and get it together in one piece. And now you can imagine Aaron May is just thinking, God, let me through all of this. Let me through this guy who is holding up the pack like it's his day job. Still not quite there. Still not quite getting it done. We indeed keep rolling.
Yeah, he's going to have to be crafty to get around this 13 car. A very experienced driver in Ted Rekich. And 429, that is not Tanner sorry. That is Paul Witt making an early pit stop. Only 22 lap-old tires. Maybe looking for an undercut, trying something different. Tanner Marr in the 40, though. Also coming down pit road, as I believe that's John Bawada Jr. No, sorry, there's too many Kellogg's tires cars. Sorry, that was the 42 of Kyle Wellman. Was going a little bit slower, and a lot of pit stops happening now. These drivers, they have a lot of fuel left. So either they just don't like where the tires are at, they want to pit early, go for the undercut, or they just kind of want to get out of the pack, you know, get free, get separated. But once again, I say it all the time, if a caution comes out in the next 10 laps, these drivers at pit will be heavily hurt.
I think the line is to get some Sunoco fuel and some Goodyear tyres. And no, you're not paid for saying that. Neither am I. And in fact, I don't know who is, but I think that's still the line. I think I've watched enough NASCAR broadcasts in my time to know it just fits in. Gudge has been such a consistent runner, and he's still flying away as we continue trading places up here. Ted Rekich just hasn't dropped off the face of the planet at all. He's still remarkably competitive enough, but the strategy play was going to rely upon factors out of his hands, surprising. And instead, they have just sort of not really, as we've run mostly clean for this run. It took one little errant mistake on a driver on older tyres to really kick off the last caution. Since the lap one we don't talk about, that we scrubbed from the record, it has been a very, very clean and easy race. But sometimes SRA runs very, very green. Sometimes they save it all for the very end. It really is a league full of surprises. Cody Gibson now dropping off second back on Gudger. And just hoping that maybe something comes this way soon.
Yeah, Gudger just seems to have really good long run pace in this car. Able to manage his tires well while keeping the lead nonetheless. Remember, Cody Gibson, William McKellar were hounding down that rear bumper of Michael Gudger, but he didn't let it get to him. He now comes in for the pit stop. Once again, I still think a little bit earlier, but he's going to come down for some Sunoco fuel and Goodyear tires, as Howie has been told me to say, because I'm getting paid from someone. No, I said
none of us are. None of us are. Well, I mean, like maybe maybe someone else is. Just, you know, I think it's Sunoco tires and Goodyear fuel. That's the conspiracy. Check the
wait. Sunoco tires? I thought it was Sunoco fuel.
Well, welcome to iRacing. Bit of a reverse. Ted Rekich misses his pit box, by the way, and overshoots by just a bit. That's going to slow down his pit exit by just enough. Is that a toe from Tanner Marr? I think Tanner Marr just towed into pit lane, and that car isn't exactly looking at its best. Did something happen here? That's what the replay cam is out to investigate, but that car certainly did spawn in. Tanner Marr, he's made it into pit lane. And he just missed his box by so much he decided to take a jump forwards. I don't imagine there were fuel problems that late into the run. But that indeed was the source of the tow. Also, if you're looking at the event log right now, don't get tricked by the words may have crashed. It likes to say that whenever someone leaves pit exit. Elliot Kundra challenging Cody Gibson for the P1, both running on the same stint, of course, as is everyone. Who's going to blink first? Nobody knows, but it will set up the finale of this race, and I'd be very interested into knowing whether someone could split it in two. I don't think they can split it in two. If it's 43 to go now and we're stopping 30 into a stint, it makes me think that we can't split this in two without a yellow.
So that would probably be the reason that we see a lot of these drivers coming in to make these early pit stops. Even though they can go around 35, 36 laps, I think what we've seen for the most. They just wanted to split their last laps here. They just want to split them into 3 equal parts, right? Pit once here, pit once here. You have about 23, 24 laps on each set of tires so that you can use your tires. You don't have to worry about saving them too much. You can use them when they're good, get rid of them when they're not. You don't have to worry about the fuel game. You don't have to worry about the tire saving game either. So that makes sense as to what these drivers are doing. That caution came out with about 72 laps. So, 24 there, 24 there, and another 24 to end the race. See Cody Gibson making his way down pit road. It looked like he was about to miss it for a second, but he does not. And that is Elliot Condra, once again, the effective, I don't know why I said once again. Elliot Condra is now the effective race leader. Aaron May 2 seconds behind in second.
Just keep an eye on the stint length and the gaps. Now 11 drivers yet to hit the pit road. Aaron May would be in P2, Zane Bailey in third. And here's a battle for position on the track. Seth Wilbur and Zane Bailey, who's just been able to climb his way back up. Very, very curious. He's taken a big advantage in the late portion of this run because really, no, there's a few drivers he is behind. It doesn't make sense that it's like this, but Zane Bailey now holding up respective P3, but it means he would have had to pass drivers like Seth Wilbur on the track in order to do this, alongside drivers like Commonsberger and Lane Jr. He's done a good job, let me put it like that. Here comes Aaron May down into pit road, running out of drivers now, but still a few more to go.
And you can see how well that undercut worked because look at that, Ted Wreckage, who not only missed his pit box, but pit from 6th place ahead of Cody Gibson. Remember, who was in 2nd place right before all the pit stops ensued. That undercut giving Ted Wreckage, giving William McKellar a lot of track position here as it kind of shot them up the order. And Cody Gibson, who, wanted to stay out a little bit later in case of a caution, maybe even to try the undercut, loses a good amount of positions because of that. Now we see Seth Wilbur, and that is him, Coleman-Spager, and Jim Coleman-Spager making their way into pit lane as well. So now we only have 6 drivers left who still have to make their second to last stop.
We've been very, very, very back and forth on the effectiveness of that strategy, Cole. I think we've heard calls that it was good and it was bad and it was good, and well, that's what long run does to surprise you. You don't really know how a car is running until the car is running. So this is really interesting. If Condra was able to make 36 laps on that stint and he exits the pits on 36, he could save to the end. Similar with Zane Bailey and Kyle Wellman. They have saved enough fuel to split the stint into 2. Other drivers haven't. They might need another stop. They've got the maths and we don't as drivers swap around the tower. But I would say look out for Condra and Bailey. And also Gudger. No, not Gudger. Condra and Bailey are going to be our big ones. And a little bit of Commonsberger to try and actually do split the impossible into 2. Because if they succeed in doing that, they just win this race, period. They have made 1 less pit stop. They lose 1 less lap. We'll be listening in on board to hear if they are saving on the way. But with this race having gone as green as it does, I think they've struck the gold.
This is going to come down to the battle as old as I forget the saying. The battle as old as time. That's what it is. Tires versus fuel. You split the stint into 3 for tires. Make sure you have fresh rubber, make sure you're all good, or split the stint into 2. Only have to pit when you need fuel. And like you said, you just save a whole pit stop when you save on fuel, essentially an entire lap, a whole 30 seconds. So unless you can use those tires to perfect execution and gain 30 seconds on those fresh tires and the people who have only stopped once, unless you're able to do that, you're really just not going to be in a position to win this race. So, I talked about it earlier. I had my picks for who I thought were the quickest drivers, who I thought was going to win this race. Those 4 drivers that, to me, looked like they had the most pace. That all gets thrown way out of whack, is because it is Elliott Condra and Zane Bailey are your top 2 drivers that can make it on field to the end of the race. Everybody else up there ahead of them cannot. So once again, it is Elliott Condra, Zane Bailey, and then Kyle Wellman in the 42 machine, who are your effective podium positions, because everybody else in front of them has one more stop to go.
Well, a caution would suddenly rip this all out of our hands. Oh, I know. That's a bad word. I should get an anvil dropped on my head just for saying it. I mean, who hasn't had enough bad luck? Here's Gibson and Duda racing side by side. Michael Gudger being extremely fast today. I was on board with those drivers who were planning on splitting this to see if I could hear them aggressively saving fuel. I did not hear them aggressively saving fuel, so they are driving like normal. I'm going to keep an eye out for some engine notes to see if anybody has that idea. For now, a very split pack, a very strategy-heavy race is starting to ensue. Drivers are split up all around the track. And now it's just a numbers game, isn't it? 31 to go, soon to be 30, 15 minutes of lapping, and either the numbers added up or the numbers did not. And there's only one way to find out, and that is staying here till the very, very end to find out.
Yeah, and of course, you talk about the numbers. I'll bring back that 72 number. From that last caution of Zane Bailey getting spun by the 5 car, there were 72 laps from green to checkered. So that means, like, again, there are 2 separate strategies. Either go 36-36 or 24-24-24. As we have battles all up and down the field. I believe was that Zane Bailey and Paul Witt fighting for P7. I can't quite remember what it was, but I think there's some battles happening. Yes, it is, but Paul Witt is backed off from that battle now. That is no longer a fight, as he's gotten a gap all the way back. Now that's the 14 car coming down pit road of Chris Mackey. So he has only been in that stint for 18 laps. So this will be his last pit stop as well. He was one of those drivers that pit earlier that chose to split it into 3 instead of 2. Makes this a really early pit stop, but at this point it doesn't really too much matter because that 2 stint strategy looks to be key here.
He's hoping for factors out of his hand that are going to change this race. A lot of drivers are going to be hoping for those sorts of effects. A lot of gaps between a second now as we hang on. So let's get you lovely on board of one of these drivers. Cody Gibson has been a fast threat all race. And we'll just sit on board for a short while and we'll have a little listen to what it's like to run around these tracks. On board there with Cody Gibson as he makes an on-track pass. And you saw the real difference in pace between those tyres as William McKellar, the 4th, was made to look like absolutely nothing. More pit stops happening down the field now as every driver that has no chance of having the fuel is doing what they can to get through this. Did you spot any in the meantime? I know Larry Bell has stopped. Paul Witt also stopped. Those are quite early, but those are drivers just getting it done now and hoping that maybe if a string of events sends the whole track down the pit lane, that they can end up leading the road. Is Elliot Kundra on Jim Duda. Tyre difference of 12 between the two, so this is going to be an effortless pass down the bottom. Duda's due to stop pretty soon with 24 laps on that stint. And once the pit stops sort out, let's take a look at the stints and just sort of see where we're at right now, because there's a lot to analyse here. So Gudger and Reckitt are two of the oldest tyre life drivers, alongside McKellar in fourth. Cody Gibson, 18 laps on the tyres. He needs to stop again. Kundra, though, we believe that Kundra might just have it in it to make it. And not only is he fast now, but he might not need to stop again. That would be the miracle move to put him up in a good place. Zane Bailey would also benefit massively, but he's been driving it just a little bit slower. Listening on that onboard, I hear something interesting in those corners. Watch the rev line here as he hits the corner and see if you can work out what Zane Bailey is doing. Pro tip, it's exactly where I thought this was going to go. That's the clutch going right in. That's the engine going off. And that's going to help save just a couple gallons of fuel over race distance. Listening carefully, he does this one more time. That is a man who is trying to finish this race in first or second. What's interesting is Kundra's playing the same strategy. Is he doing the same thing? So he knows fuel. He's aware of it. He's doing it too. Those are your two drivers that are fuel saving their way to a win here at Charlotte.
Yeah, so once again, tires versus fuel. Michael Gudger now making his last pit stop. He's going to have he's going to have, let me look at my numbers.
20 to go?
16, there it is. 16 lap fresher tires, then Zane Bailey, then Elliot Kundra, and he's also not going to be fuel saving. Can Gudger put the laps in that he needs, have the pace to catch all the way back up to them when they're fuel saving and on older tires? That is what this race is going to come down to, Howie. It's the 64 versus the 09. Tires versus fuel. I say it once again. It seems so basic, but the strategies are really coming out to play here, and which one comes out on top, we can only find out 19 laps from now.
Bring out the calculator on the next lap, Lucas, because you're going to be doing some fun mathematics. We're going to find out how much faster Gudger is running than our race leader, Elliot Kundra, and if he can make it up over 17 laps, he is golden. 27 seconds is what it's going to take, so he would need to be more than 8 seconds faster to claim this win. Crosses the line. 0.785. I mean, you've got to make 27 seconds and 17 laps. So I recommend doing double that and then a bit more. But, which I don't really know is entirely possible out there. I'm asking some drivers to do the superhuman. Here's Jim Kommensberger, who is still yet to stop 20 into the stint, passing on the inside. Aaron May. Those are laps at the same age. Kommensberger started 20th. This has been a great race to get him up to here, but this top 5, they're the ones that aren't going to need to stop. That's right. He has the same stint number as the others. Don't blame me. It's 2 in the morning, baby. Top 5 don't need to stop if they save the fuel properly. No one else needs to stop, but Michael Gudger needs to push. There's absolutely no way he claims this win on current pace, so it would need to be an external factor. It would need to be some assistance from the field.
All right, the math is in. Michael Gudger needs to outpace Elliot Kundra by 1.7 seconds a lap. No easy task. But with Elliot's tires falling off, with him fuel saving, putting the clutch in every corner, Gudger on fresh tires, getting him warmed up. As this stint continues, as this stint matures, he might be able to to start putting in those 1.7 second a lap quicker times that he needs to catch up to him. But of course, you have to think about these other drivers he has to drive through. Thomas Lane Jr., Aaron May, Jim Kolmensberger. They're not easy passes. You still have to drive around them, losing you time. So that 1.7, that might even get moved up to 1.9, even maybe 2 seconds to factor in passing other cars. So it's not going to be easy for the 64 machine, but I love to see the comeback story. Plus, how I think he deserves it. He's had the pace all race, been driving it absolutely wonderfully. The 2 second places on the season, sits in second in the championship standings right now. I really want to see him do it, so I'm rooting for him. I'm definitely rooting for him.
Yeah, I'm afraid to be the negative Nancy. Jim Kommensberger stops again. He didn't save the fuel properly. I'm the negative Nancy here now to crush the co-commentator's hopes and dreams. And I know your responsibility is to make a race sound exciting to the end, so it's not personal. But my problem is that he needed to be going 1.4 seconds faster when you started speaking, and he hasn't been able to do that a single time. And every lap he doesn't do it, that needs to get bigger and bigger and bigger. He needs to be going faster and faster to make up for the laps where he didn't hit 1.4. We now have 12 to go, and he still failed to hit a second. So Michael Gudge is going to enjoy this P5. Could even push for a few more places. He's not miles off Aaron May. Could even get Thomas Lane Jr., I think, in the time. But Zane Bailey and Elliot Kundra played the strategy game and are on another universe. It will take an external factor to knock them down from the top. We're going to work on keeping an eye on Gibson. He's got 5 seconds to make up to the next car. That's pretty achievable if he goes at least half a second faster every lap. But he's being challenged by Ted Reckett now.
Yeah, bit interesting that Wreckage, you know... Oh, yeah, sorry, he's not a lap down. I am completely speaking nonsense. But yeah, Wreckage and Gibson now fighting. Once again, these are two drivers who took that tire route. You know, this is their second pit stop of those last 72 laps. They're on very equal footing with their tires. Only a lap difference in between. So essentially nothing. So this is pure pace. And I believe Wreckage does have the better pace than Cody Gibson from what I've seen today so far. Even though Cody Gibson was your technical pole sitter, Ted Wreckage has been, you know, really, really quick besides when he was on those older tires. Been really quick, showing his pace all race. He's probably going to get this move done within the next 1 or 2 laps here.
It's my favorite time of the day. It's the time where I get to talk through what else is coming on this channel. Lots of racing to go. For my eyes, it's the Fuller Boys Racing League at Bristol Motor Speedway that's next up and ready to catch. High Tide Racing League hits Auto Club Speedway there down the line. And then we have some road racing to make up our week. The FTR Endurance Series heads to Magny Core, and at the same time, the VRR IndyCar Series 2 hours later gets going on the Indianapolis road course. 2 back-to-back sprint races. On the only weeks of the season I can't be around for. But there's more IndyCar coming down the line. More road IndyCar coming down the line, because on the 14th you have the Classic IndyCar Series at Mid-Ohio. So we're getting one of those good roadie weekends on the way. Next week, I finally get one of my big, finally get one of my big weeks, my personal indulgences. But now is not the time. Let me tell you that. This is our last battle on the track. Cody Gibson and Ted Reckett. And really, they are just going to chase each other down for this P5. It is sort of anyone's game. Everybody else, gaps are huge up ahead and down the road. And Elliot Kundra and Zane Bailey have played this pit strategy well, but Kundra was in the better place to deliver and was involved in fewer incidents, and that's probably contributed to his impending race win today. Don't curse it. Don't curse it.
I know, we have to be very careful with the commentator's curse. It's happened so many times in so many different leagues. I'm sure both me and Howie have had to say some apologies to some drivers, even though we didn't touch the asphalt ourselves. And yeah, once again, Ted Reckage, Cody Gibson, they're driving side by side. That was almost like 5 or 6 consecutive laps there. Ted Reckage not able to make as easy work of Cody Gibson's as I assumed. They're very close on pace, and they might be side by side until the checkered flag, which would be interesting to follow. And Michael Gudger looks like he has stalled out in P3. Not actually stalled out, not literally, but like metaphorically. Stalled out in P3. Looks like that is where he's going to finish this race. Probably doesn't have the pace to catch up to Zane Bailey. At this point, definitely doesn't have the pace to catch up to Elliott Condra. So unfortunately, my hype was all kind of for nothing, but at least we have this great battle for 5th that we can continue to watch.
This is going to go side by side all the way to the checkered flag. Neither giving up any quarter at all. Those tyres only 1 lap difference in pace. So it's really about who can clear and who can make it happen. Should get more momentum on that high side, but just the clear hasn't been able to really allow him to run away. Now slides up in place, but every time Wreckage is sort of back on the bottom to curse and to haunt before we run into this back straight. Lots of lap traffic up in the way, by the way. Not quite sure how they're going to react to 2 charging balls, our closest battlers on the track. That's actually not a lap car at all. That's Thomas Lane Jr., who is miles off the pace. He's 16 laps older in the tyres. And would you believe it? That's going to lead to contact. We're staying green, but 16 lap older tyres in the middle of the road. Amazingly, all the cars are pointed back forwards, and we still have a race, but I think Ted Wreckage got the best of that.
That was almost catastrophic. Thankfully, these drivers were able to keep this race green. A last-second caution here would have been absolutely detrimental to the on-track racing, as the 11 of Jim Coleman'sberger, that is a lap car. But yeah, the 38 of Thomas Lane Jr., he was not going to lose 2 positions on that account, as you said. Has double the amount of laps on that set of tires than the 1 and the 13. And like you said, Ted Wreckage makes his way up to 4th from that contact, from that incident. Now we have the white flag lap as Elliott Condra is going to take us to the checker.
He didn't do much battling, but he didn't really need to. A strategy masterclass from Elliott Condra leads the way for the Fuel Savers to take the checkered flag. And Elliott Condra claims a win at Charlotte that he is going to be proud of thinking through.
Yeah, and then we got to wait 9 seconds. You can count them up, Howie. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, as now Zane Bailey will cross the line, coming in 2nd place, and just behind him, the 64 machine of Michael Gudger will wrap out your podium positions. Once again, Gudger opted for that strategy of 24, 24, 24. Using those fresher tires. Wasn't able to get the win in the end, but still a very great race for him. He should be proud of the pace he showed today. But let's go back to our 09. Let's watch him spin it down on pit road. And as we let you guys hear the tire sounds, the engine sounds of that 09 machine, as Elliott Condra burns it down for that race win. I remember how coming into this race, if you think back an hour and a half ago, we were like, this could be the race where we get a new winner this season. And boy, were we right.
Elliott Condra takes a strategy win to the flag, and a Zane Bailey in P2. Going to be very good on those points for him in the season. Let me tell you that. Michael Gudger finishes P3 ahead of Ted Wreckage, Jody Gibson, Thomas Lane Jr., Aaron May, William McKellar, Jim Duda, and Kyle Wellman. Further behind, there's 10 more.
Yeah, and that will be Paul Witt in 11th, Seth Wilbur, Jeff Gilmore, Jim Coleman'sberger, Mike Campbell now, all finishing 1 lap down. 2 laps down is going to be Larry Bell, John Bawalda Jr., Chris Mackey, and then behind them in 19th, Joshua Burke and Tanner Marr, who had that weird connection issue or issues and finishes 46 laps down.
A race that makes it to the end, quite close to one time, but we'd like to try and speak to our top 3 finishers whenever they're able to quite bring themselves in. I think we're going to have to start pull them out of their channels. Where's Michael Gudger? Let's hunt him down. I see him in Ford Racing. I'm gonna try and pull him out, and I'll have a word about P3 finisher. Michael Gudger in the interview box. Do you have a copy?
Yeah, I got you.
A race that ended up being defined by strategy, and you ended up on the other side of it, but you were absolutely the fastest on the track of the day. How did that pan out for you?
It's frustrating, is to say the least. Love being the fastest car several times and getting screwed out by I can't even find the right words for it. It's just so frustrating. Being fastest car easily should have won the race, and then getting screwed over by strategy by people who should have been absolutely nowhere near the front of this race. Not to say that Elliott or Zane aren't bad drivers. They're certainly good drivers in their own right, but um, they didn't deserve to win this race. I'm sorry. I hate to say that. It's probably just me being salty, but I don't know. It just is like every single time we get a fuel strategy race, it's always me on the wrong side of it. And unfortunately, it seems like every other race is a fuel strategy race, which is very annoying, but it's still a great run. P3 is still a good point stake. We'll take it away and move on to Homestead, where hopefully it won't be fuel mileage and it'll be actually outright pace. So that way somebody who deserves to win the race can win the race.
Well, long season ahead. Where do you think you're going to be strongest and be able to make that happen?
I don't know. Charlotte's easily my strongest track, and obviously I should have won the race, but I don't know. Honestly, the only tracks on here that I feel like don't really feel good about is Dover, and that's really it. I feel good on mile and a half, larger tracks, those fast tracks. I love those fast tracks. So really good schedule, and hopefully, if things can actually go my way for once, I can actually get into victory lane. Hopefully we can get a good fight for this championship going.
Well, any other thank yous or shout outs on this evening?
Um, I mean, props to the top two. As much as I really don't think they deserve to get top two, I got to commend the fact that they were able to make it, because apparently that's something that I just cannot do as fuel strategy. But props to Zane, props to Elliott for winning that race. But man, Zane, good comeback there. Both of them good comeback after that wreck on the very beginning of the start. But yeah, just frustrating that stuff doesn't go your way all the time. So just gonna hold my head up high and go to next week.
Best of luck on the track in future races.
Thank you.
That was Michael Gardner. That was one of the more interesting interviews I had in my life. So if I can find him, I indeed can. I'll leave you with Zane Bailey. Let's see if I can work out the long drag. I can.
Yes. So welcome, Zane Bailey, your second place finisher here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Take us through your fuel strategy. How were you able to save that fuel? Was it clutch? What were you doing there?
Yeah, I pushed a little bit too early. Wasn't able to. I lost too much time early. I should have pushed more early. But yeah.
Yeah, and we saw that you had that damage. Think back way earlier in the race. You had the damage, and you opted not to fix it with your fast repair. Kind of said, "Oh shoot, maybe this damage is kind of necessary to fix." You cut your losses, got that fast repair, and you finished second in the race. So that was the right call overall. Talk us through, why you kind of took that risk to not use your fast repair that first time through.
Well, idiots got lucky on tight setup, getting nice laps in qualifying. And don't know how to start and wreck the whole field. So I thought they would keep wrecking, but they probably used their fast repair and then they calmed down. And they were in the back. And so they didn't have to start in the race and they didn't have to wreck the field. And no yells ever came out. Thought there'd be more yells. Probably should have took my fast repair right there, but didn't. Stupid call by me.
Well, that's all good. It worked out in your end of the favor. Of course, a great P2 here, and you still will be leading the championship standings going into Homestead. How are you feeling going to Miami?
It's probably going to be another one of these stupid setups where you can't turn the car for 5 to 10 business days, but I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Well, Zane, is there anybody else you'd like to shout out or thank before we let you go off here?
Just my teammates.
All right. Well, you heard it there, Zane Bailey. Thanks his teammates. That was your second place finisher. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'll make
All
sense.
right, as your winner.
Cue me in. Cue me in.
Sorry. I believe Howie is sitting with the winner, the 09 car, Elliot Condra race. Take it away, Howie.
One day I'll learn how to speak with you. Elliot Condra played the fuel game today and led the field when it really mattered over the line. When did you think that was going to become a fuel race?
No idea. It kind of just, it was that last, the second caution came in and I was thinking about taking no tires, but decided to take them anyway. And it was about there that I thought that if it went green, it'd be close. Started saving from about there.
Well, it came to you at the right time and we saw enough fuel saving it down the line. How scared were you that factors outside of your control were going to flip that race on its head?
Not really sure, honestly. It was sort of just sitting there waiting, just patiently waiting to see what would happen, and the race came to me, I guess.
Now, trust me, this is a question I don't have a good answer to either when anyone asks me, but do you have any other thank yous or shout outs before we wrap up the show?
I would kind of like to apologize for the initial start. It's kind of messed up. I saw the 18 go on the inside and hit the 75, and it caused the big chain reaction at the beginning, but I feel kind of bad for that and for everybody involved in that one. But other than that, I think it was a great race between all the guys, and it was really fun.
Well, a surprising win, a good win. Go ahead and enjoy it. Long season ahead. Hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you.
And that's our race winner, Elliot Condra, making our top 3 on the day. Lucas, that sure has been one of the more interesting. I say every race in this league is an interesting one, to be honest, because they all bring something that's a little bit different, but that's one where strategy came to win it for the day.
Yeah, and of course you heard that some of the drivers that didn't get that win, they felt a little bit salty, a little bit cheated out of that win. Zane Bailey, you heard, he really wanted to have that. He thought if he pushed a bit earlier, he might have had it. Michael Gudger, of course, felt like he deserved the win, but just couldn't pull that strategy out in the end. But it's been a great race from just outside the 485 loop of Charlotte. And, you know, I think it was great. I love the strategy races. People that have seen my cast before know that. I think when it comes down to the chess, when it comes down to that thinking aspect of racing, that is what I love the most, and that is what I love to commentate on.
Plenty more on this channel over the coming weeks. Some fantastic races, some all sorts of leagues, and of course SRA will be back same time, same place at Homestead Miami Speedway next week around. From Howie Burrows on production and lead, alongside Lucas Moody, alongside as ever. I'd like to thank you very much for spending your evening with us tonight, and we'll wish you best of luck out there on the track in the week ahead.
Peace.